Teaching with Poverty in Mind, a book review by Lydia Graves. Dr. Smith's Summer 2019 class, EHS 556, Classroom Management course. Teaching with Poverty in Mind, What Being Poor Does to Kids' Brains and What Schools Can Do About It was written by Eric Jensen in 2009. With a PhD in human development, Jensen became a leading researcher in brain development, publishing over 29 books, 3 of which were on the bestsellers list. This book was written to educators working in schools with high poverty rates. Addressing both teachers and administrators, Jensen gives his readers research and theory along with success stories and action steps at multiple levels within the education system. Teaching with Poverty in Mind starts by defining poverty and how it affects students, both behaviorally and academically. Jensen dives into the mindset shift necessary to facilitate change. He then goes on to provide 5 school-wide success factors as well as 5 classroom-level success factors. Lastly, Jensen offers his readers hope through the story of a jaded veteran teacher, Chris Hawkins. In the introduction to the book, Jensen quickly explains the essential question that he aims to answer. If life experiences can change poor kids for the worse, can't life experiences also change them for the better? Jensen outlines a 3-pronged approach. First, by providing a better understanding of poverty and how it affects students. Second, he proposes ideas for what will drive change, both macro and microscopically. Lastly, Jensen asks the readers to evaluate themselves and their schools. Jensen states that persons with income less than that deemed sufficient to purchase basic needs such as food, shelter, clothing, and other essentials are designated as poor. He goes on to explain the complexity of poverty and breaks it down into 6 categories. The first category is situational poverty. It's generally caused by a sudden crisis or loss and is often temporary. There's also generational poverty. It occurs in families where at least 2 generations have been born into poverty. Absolute poverty is rare in the United States, and it involves a scarcity of such necessities as shelter, running water, and food. Relative poverty refers to the economic status of a family whose income is insufficient to meet the society's average standard of living. Urban poverty occurs in metropolitan areas with populations of at least 50,000 people, whereas rural poverty occurs in non-metropolitan areas with populations below 50,000 people. After defining what poverty is, Jensen dives into how poverty affects students. The risk factors afflicting families living in poverty are not only individual, emotional, and social challenges, but also cognitive lags, health and safety issues, and other external stressors. Jensen refers to multiple studies linking poverty to emotional and social challenges with students. Research states that for children to develop at a healthy rate, they need consistency, stability, sociability, and regular enriching activity, all difficult to provide with regularity if you're living in poverty. As a result, at school, students are more likely to exhibit misbehavior, leaving peers and teachers frustrated and confused. Students do bring 3 strong relational forces to school. All of their behavior is driven by the need for reliable relationships, strengthening their peer socialization and the quest for importance and status. Jensen stresses that if emotional and social skills have not been taught, there are action steps that educators can take, including embodying respect themselves, embedding social skills, and being inclusive in the classroom. Jensen defines stress as physiological response to perception of loss of control resulting from an adverse situation or person. Acute stress refers to severe stress, such as trauma from abuse or violence, and chronic stress refers to high stress maintained over time. Research reveals that the impact of such stressors have on the brain, and that when they're unmediated, this stress carries over and the brain adapts to the negative life experiences. As a result, the chronic stress leads to school absences, impaired concentration, reduced memory, diminished social skills, reduced motivation, and increased rates of depression. Teachers must be self-aware and recognize the signs so that they respond productively and not punitively. In addition, teachers can change the classroom environment by incorporating a variety of instructional strategies. Jensen provides brief descriptions on how the different areas of the brain function in relation to a student's economic status. He states that poor academic performance often leads to diminished expectations. The action steps that Jensen suggests are to take to assist with the cognitive lags include building course skills, pinpointing assessments, providing help and support to the students, and recruiting the best staff and training them. Health and achievement both overlap. The lower the socioeconomic status of a student, the lower their health is due to stress. Unfortunately, the negative environmental effects synergize and they build on each other. So educators can take these action steps to increase they can increase health related services, develop an enrichment counterattack by creating excellent school environment. Jensen states that there is good news. There's hope and having a mindset change. Some action steps include the educators having an awareness, that school district and administration investing in staff, training them, support and ongoing collaboration between teachers, administration, and the students, encouraging staff to speak with each other and collaborate even further, and then gathering quality data on the students. Jensen provides 2 success factors. In each category, he breaks down 5 additional factors. School-wide, he says that the school can support the whole child, collect hard data, be accountable, build relationships, and create an enrichment mindset. At the classroom level, he suggests that teachers, or he demands really that teachers have standards-based curriculum and instruction. Their classroom environment is hopeful, and they have a hopeful classroom culture, that they encourage arts and athletics as well as advanced placement. There's a retooling of the operating system and engaging instruction. Lastly, Jensen wraps up the book by giving an example of a story about a jaded veteran teacher, and he gives some really great practical steps and ideas for how to begin or to plan for class, begin class, carry out instructional strategies, end the class, and then at the closing of the day. This book relates to classroom management in that it reinforces the importance of consistency with routines and rules, and also the importance of having SMART objectives that are standards-based, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely, as well as a variety of instructional strategies. In my experience, I've worked at a Title I school. All the students receive free lunch. Over 95% of the students are minorities, most living in project government housing in an urban setting. There are very limited resources and mostly new teachers. So I can really see how some suggestions from this book can be implemented. As a critique, I found it helpful for new educators and educators who are new to working with students in poverty. And I like how Jensen gives some practical action steps as well as research and theory. On the negative side, some of his language I don't agree with, and he suggests that some of the students' brains are not wired for academic success. Um, I, and I don't find that to be correct. Um, Also, I think that a lot of the suggestions he makes are for administration and at the district level. An example that I have is the WIN Foundation, who works with Birmingham City Schools. They're an outside organization that provides services to students in the Woodlawn feeder pattern. And Birmingham City Schools recently eliminated that relationship, and it was at no cost to the school district to have that relationship and to receive their services. So, um, there's not a lot that teachers individually can do about things like that. Some other books to consider. I'm also reading Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain. In that book, Hammond digs deeper into the effect that poverty has on the brain. And she also gives some practical steps on how to strengthen culturally responsive teaching. I can also see a correlation with Discipline in the Secondary Classroom by Sprick. He offers some great guides to creating rules, procedures, and routines, and he offers some strategies to manage both acute and chronic misbehavior.